firm believer that hard work works, and it's as simple as that.
Hi, Fitzness Academy. Just before the episode starts, I wanted to come on here and just say quickly, obviously, I apologize about the audio of the podcast today. My mic was turned a little bit too high, so unfortunately, you might want to turn down your earphones a little bit. But apart from that, this episode was honestly truly inspiring, especially for myself, being similar age to the main man himself. So I hope you enjoy the episode, team. And once again, I apologize. It won't happen again. I'll make sure it's turned down a little bit. So obviously you guys don't get an absolute earful when you hear Jay speaking nice and quietly, and then myself just absolutely blasting your ears off. So apologies for that, team. Have a fantastic day and enjoy the episode. Welcome everyone to episode number 7 of the Fitzness Academy Podcast. I am very delighted this time. I say that all the time, but I am definitely, it's early in the morning, team. It's early in the morning, but it's definitely going to be worth it. I'm joined here by Jayce Olivero. Jayce is a Gibraltar international footballer, a good mate of mine, and very glad to have him on the podcast. He's made now 34 caps, if I'm not mistaken, if my research is correct, for Gibraltar now. And up until very recently was the youngest ever player for Gibraltar and youngest captain as well, being made captain for the Malta game in October. So very delighted to have you on, bro. Thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you very much for having me.
No worries at all, bro. Obviously, I've done my research, and obviously I've watched a little mini doc. I'll put a little link in the description to the mini doc you did on Copa 90, because it was a very good documentary. Having watched it myself, and obviously seeing you've played in the UK as well. Do you want to give us a little journey through your footballing career, obviously through to the present day?
Yeah, of course. Well, obviously, firstly, I started off here in Gibraltar, and to be honest, at a very young age, I didn't really. My parents just put me into football because they thought, I had a group of friends at the team in Lions at the time, so yeah, just joined them and picked it up from there. Every year, sort of, I started enjoying it more and more. I was a type of young player that at a very young age, the game would be going on and I'd just be looking at the planes going by. Or but yeah, then thankfully I progressed through the age categories from there, and I decided obviously to stay committed to Lions all the way up to the age of 17, 18. Thankfully, I made my senior debut with really good for me, and looking back at it now, it was a massive step forward in terms of my football development, simply because I was exposed to men's football, which is very different to youth football, and that was really good. And then thankfully had a really good season with Lions, and I thankfully earned myself a call-up at the age of 17 to the men's national squad. And to be fair, I didn't expect that at all. It was always something that I sort of aspired to and dreamed of, but didn't think it was going to come so early. So yeah, that was massive for me. And then to be able to actually debut and play and start against Liechtenstein was a great moment for me and for my family. And then thankfully after that, I decided along with my parents that I wanted to go to university to get my degree, because even though, I love football and that's sort of my main ambition in life, I really enjoy sort of studying and the education side of it. So I've always tried to, since a young age, sort of do both areas of my life as best as possible and use both to sort of help each other. And yeah, I went to Oxford Brookes University, and I wanted to make sure that before I went, I had everything in place to continue at high level with my football. And thankfully, with help from here in Gibraltar, I found a team there, Abingdon United. And yeah, it was really, really good experience. It was very different. It was definitely out of my comfort zone in the sense of I didn't know anyone there. I went to university. A lot of my friends sort of went to other universities, and I went to just by myself because I wanted to just knuckle down and focus on my studies and football. And I had a really, really good 3 years there. I matured massively in terms of football and the sort of physical aspect of the game. It really sort of made me realize what I had to do to be able to compete at men's senior level. And thankfully, I've been able to continue with the senior national squad all throughout these years since I've started. And looking, once I got back from university, I obviously thankfully had a couple of options, and after speaking with my family, I decided that Europa was the best option for me, and it definitely was. And I've had a really good 2 seasons so far with Europa, and I'm really, really happy and developing, getting better each day. And thankfully as well, I've been able to continue with the national team, and looking back at it now, I would never have thought that I'd be able to achieve as many caps as I have up to now. And look, hopefully I'll continue having these great experiences that at the end of the day international football give you. So yeah, brilliant.
Well, yeah, that's for such a young person. I think everyone can agree, whoever's watching this, fingers crossed it's a lot of people, can tell that that's a pretty good story, even if it is sort of whilst you're still at a young age, because yeah, you've had a good story, but you've still got many more years to come. Like,
yeah, hopefully so.
Exactly. Well, I'm sure you will, bro. And as a matter of fact, team, if you've not realized yet, Jayce is, in off the top of my head, the games which I've watched, of course, Jayce has come up against Kevin De Bruyne, Romelu Lukaku, Erling Haaland, and a few others.
Yeah.
So that is
top.
It's not bad. They're not bad. They're not bad. No? Well, all right.
Top players, and that's what international football gives you. And for me, that's one of my like motivation when we're competing, or when maybe during, for example, these summer months. That's what I've got at the back of my mind, and that's what I work towards. Because at the end of the day, I know that all these players at top clubs, and they've been at top clubs for a very young age, but I just sort of have that mentality of I'll make sure that when the opportunity comes, I am just as prepared as they are, or even better, to sort of always close that gap and try and minimize the difference as best as possible, and try and compete as best as possible with all these top players.
Well, that mindset is ridiculous for such a young person to have. So I'm not surprised, but I'm glad to know that you've got that mentality already at such a young age, because now, fingers crossed, when you carry on getting caps and caps and caps, and when you play the second leg, fingers crossed, of the qualifiers coming up soon in September, you've got that experience again. Fingers crossed, obviously, after Jayce coming back from injury, fingers crossed he played was it last week? I think it was. Yeah,
in Lithuania.
Yeah, so fingers crossed now he's back, and he's ready to keep Erling Haaland in his pocket, because I'm joking, Erland. He's definitely watching this. No, I'm joking. No, but obviously you mentioned that time away at university. Having watched that documentary, I got a little insight into what it was like. Sort of, you speaking about that different style of football. Has that football helped you staying in the national team? Because obviously you can. I obviously not to the same level, but I've got some sort of like international experience playing like cricket, for example. And I know once you get in the side, your place isn't guaranteed. You need to keep working hard. So has going to like Abingdon United, did it help you sort of progress, or was it like because obviously you don't aim just to like sort of stay the same? Was it were you looking to improve all the time by like sort of playing different style of football?
I always have, and I always keep this mentality in the sense of I always remember the first time they ever got the call up for the national team, just for the training squad. And the way that I sort of worked and put my head down and dedicated myself to try and just get a spot into that squad, I always sort of treat that, every call up, I treat it as that. So every call up, when we're called up for training, I sort of treat it as it's the first time that I'm getting called up, so I always make sure that I have that hunger, because I don't take these things for granted. And one of the things was thankfully I was involved with the national team before going off to university, but I wasn't satisfied just then. I wanted to cement my place in the team and continue progressing. And that's why I took the decision to play in the UK whilst studying, and that helped me massively, because I was happy. I was at a good level when I traveled that way to the UK, but then I realized that there were areas of my game where I could definitely improve on, and one of those aspects, and especially as a defender, was the physicality of it. And I know that the first couple of months, or the first season as such, was not a struggle, I'd say, but was very, very difficult, because I'd come up with, I was 18 and I'd come up with like men with massive footballing experience, and they'd come up, and it's just, the physicality was completely different to what I was exposed to here. And the thing is that there are sort of, everyone knows and accepts that sort of physicality. So the referee sort of lets a lot of play go on. So for me, it was a massive learning experience. And then, I really learned. And I remember that this first summer after my first year of university, I really sort of put in the extra work in terms of in the gym work, all the other work to help me with my physicality, in addition to obviously the technical and tactical work. And I got back the second season, and yeah, it was really, really, it was really good. And I really enjoyed the second and third season. I had adapted better to that style of play, and it was really good. And thankfully, I was able to achieve a couple of awards done in the UK. So that meant that was really, really good for me. And obviously, that would help me, because once I got back, I brought all those learning experiences to when I'd play here with the national team. So I think that's really, really important. And for any sort of young, not only just footballers, just athletes in general, who are pushing and striving for the national team, who are already maybe just getting there, or just, it's important just to treat every sort of call up as the first ever, as a very first call up, because that will help you appreciate each one. And then I think that will just allow you to look back and have no regrets, which is what I try and sort of do daily. So yeah.
That's amazing, bro. In terms of, I'm interested in that little change that you made. You said to get that, obviously the refs allowed the play to go in a bit more, obviously give an advantage when sort of the more physical sort of challenges went in, etc. Was that a change which was sort of told to you by a coach or other players, or was that you in your own minds being like, right, I need to improve in this area or this area? So was it like sort of a self sort of decision, sort of to know that you need to be a bit stronger, or was it a coach telling you to?
Because it was I think mainly it was it was my own decision. It's something that I quickly realized. Thankfully I was playing. I played every game throughout the whole season, and I was really happy how I was performing. But I'm someone who's never satisfied. So that's when I was analyzing my game, and I was realizing, okay, like I can do much, much better. And that's why, I made sure that I stepped up my game for the next season. And actually they had told me that they really saw the difference from one season to the next. And, that was good for me. I was happy with that. I was able to achieve that. So
that's fantastic. I think it's very good that you've realized yourself, because a lot of the time I think, well, I wouldn't say previously, but it still happens today. There's a lot of players, in all sports who have to wait to be told exactly when to improve, where there's a lot of players like yourself and a few others, which I know of, like, who actually put in the work behind the scenes, even behind the scenes after that.
Yeah,
but,
of course.
Is there ever a sense of like sort of letting go a little bit as well and not over analyzing, especially like maybe you've like everyone does, everyone has a a bad patch of form, for example. It happens throughout the season.
Yeah,
Do you have to like relax a little bit?
I am, and it's all about learning and sort of knowing the right sort of measures to take. I remember maybe in the past I would sort of overanalyze my game. Then maybe if I'd have a bad game, a bad training session, I would think about that training session like all week. And yeah, look, it's massively important to have your standards high. But it's okay. I'm actually reading a book now, and it was basically sort of discussing that at the end of the day, like, we're humans, we're not perfect, and sport is such a sort of chaotic and quick game that mistakes are bound to happen. But the key is how you sort of respond to those mistakes. So I'm always trying to improve, not just performance-wise, like mentality-wise. So I sort of took a shift from overanalyzing. I analyze each game and took okay, so I had a bad day today. Why? Okay, I can just do this better. But I accepted, like, it's okay to have a bad day. And someone who was really, really helpful with that as well was the national team coach now, Julio. He's really, really good at that, because he always explains how at the end of the day, we more often than not, we might not be like on the ball, like sharp. We might not have a great day on the ball, but what's massively important is that each day you show up and you give 100%. So leading up to games, leading up to training sessions, I may think, yeah, okay, I might not have had a good day on the ball, but I know that I gave everything. And at the end of the day, that's what essentially is important, because if you don't have a good day on the ball, you can help your team in many other ways. And that's massively important. So I think it's good for athletes not to just over sort of reflect on their performances and get too hard done by it, like if they have a bad training or a bad game. It's important how you respond to it, and you respond to it with that sort of productive, positive manner. I think it'll help each athlete massively.
That's exactly it, bro. Especially like, look, it sounds simple, but like, the sun will come up tomorrow. If you have whether you have a bad game or whether you have a good game, whether you have a good training session or a bad training session.
Yeah.
So I think, like you said, it's how you respond after that. Like you said, no one's perfect. I'm definitely not, and I've said it before, and I'll say it again. It's about being very present with things. You know what I mean?
Of course.
If even when you're having a good day or a bad day, it's important to take the goods and the bads, and then you take the goods and the bads. Right, I did this good, I did this badly, and then boom, on to the next one. You chuck it away and on to the next one.
I don't even sort of say the goods or the bads. I just say the good points and the learning points, and that's it. Like, and yeah, obviously we have to obviously say, look, there are many sort of negative things that can happen day to day, but it's the learning. Like, I've always wanted to avoid like bad performances, but looking back at it now, those bad performances have really sort of helped me. Like, it's helped change. And it's like, maybe, for example, what we're going back to, those experiences in the UK, well, maybe I had quite a few sort of learning experiences in the sense of during games where I was like, something I had never experienced, but that sort of a change in my sort of mentality and attitude. So yeah, it's just important how you respond to it.
Exactly, bro. It's not a case of, I think a lot of people get bogged down as well and think about it as mistakes or think about it as failures. I think it's important to learn that, look, the mistakes and the lessons, like you said, no one's perfect. So at the end of the day, it's about using those as lessons, whether it's a life lesson or a sport lesson. You know what I mean? It's
of course.
It's about making you better. At the end of the day, you make the mistake, so then you don't make it again, or you make it happen a less amount of times.
And then when you become better and you do great things, everyone else forgets about the mistakes.
Exactly.
So do you. So
no one will remember you for your mistakes.
that's something that that I was always, I was trying to limit mistakes, not just in life in general as well, but it's important as well. At the end of the day, in sport, you have to take risks as well to be able to get to the next level. And going back to that book that I'm reading now as well, it talks about how it's important just to not have that fear of making mistakes, and it gives sort of examples of, for example, Michael Jordan, he's had many missed shots, many bad games, but everyone remembers him for the great moments, and yeah, I took a lot from that.
That's fantastic. I haven't finished watching this documentary on Netflix yet, but a lot of people have actually said that they've modeled their game and they've used those bits of advice from him, because obviously, like you said, for every 1,000 shots he did, 10% of them, they never went in or he missed, and those 10
yeah, of course,
for him are not failures. Sorry, he said obviously from that moment on they're not failures, obviously they're mistakes, but then he knows that next time he does it, the next 1,000 maybe he only does 9%, he misses, and then 8.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the same with everything. If you look at some of the players nowadays, look like someone like your Ronaldo's, your Messi's, your most of them, they're doing things nowadays to make sure that yes, you limit their mistakes, but they understand that things are going to happen and no one's perfect. If you look at some professional team and think that they're perfect, it's you're a bit naive, and then that's when
no, of course not.
You need to have that mold that you're gonna have. Don't think that you're gonna have a bad day, but and understand afterwards that it's possible it might happen. But at the end of the day, it's all about thinking positively. Do you reckon in that? Have you ever had a moment where you thought that you were in a bit of like a bad stage, and then you had to like sort of I don't know how to express it, but did you ever have a feeling of not being able to get out of like a bad run of form? And if you did, like, sort of, how did you get out of it?
I've had, there's been many times. There's not one that I can there's pinpoint, but most definitely there are throughout the season and in certain sorts of big games as well. I've realized that maybe, I've just not been performing at the level that I thought I could do, or that I've been preparing for. And obviously at the very beginning, once I was experiencing these things, it was hard to take, and mentally it was very, very challenging to accept. But then going back to sort of having that mentality and adopting that mentality, I would simply sort of think, I would just know that obviously I would sit down and I know, okay, that good performance, as long as I put in the work, as long as I keep my dedication and I keep working hard, that good performance is going to come. It's normal to have sort of the same way as you have really good phases and maybe some just normal phases where you're competing well enough. Those sort of difficult, bad stages are going to come, but you just have to keep confident and know that if you put in the work, obviously, as long as you keep in the work and you don't sort of just give up because you've had you're going through a bad patch, those good performances will come. So I sort of don't focus on, okay, I'm having a bad performance. I just focus, the good performance will come because I'm putting in the work, and I'm a firm believer that hard work works, and it's as simple as that. And thankfully, that's for every bad patch I've gone through, some longer than others. Maybe I've been like, I've questioned, will the good game, the good training session come? And then next thing I know, boom, good training session. That's just sort of helped me
skyrocket
sort of. Yeah, so it's just important knowing that it's the good performance will come again. It's you're not gonna lose sort of your ability or your talent or everything you've worked for just because you have a bad performance. The same as with injury as well. That was something really challenging for me. This past injury that I've had was one I've never really had an injury like this, thankfully, and hopefully it can be the last, first and only one. But it was hard because I would ask myself, so much time away, will I be back to where I was? and yeah, just using that same mentality. I was putting in the work. Obviously not the same as training normal football, but I was putting in the work. I was sitting aside and training, looking, listening to the coach, and I was taking everything in. I was training mind and body, but I just wasn't participating until now. And now when I've got back, I feel ready, you know? So I think that's important as well for anyone who's maybe going through long-term injury or just difficulties off the pitch that don't let them perform. It's important just to keep body and mind ready, so when you get back, your body sort of just gets back into that competition mode.
It's a bit of patience and perseverance as well. No, I suppose at the end of the day, like I put a little photo of it, like someone here, but there's like a photo of like someone who's like they're like two people digging for gold, and then like sort of one is like about to get there, and then he gives up, and then the other one is still going. It's a little bit further, but he's still going. No, so it's about wait. It's about being a little bit patient, especially I think a lot of people nowadays they see, you know, especially in the national team. You know, I've been fortunate to have some experience with under 19 before, and there's so many talented young lads and really, really good lads in that team. Yeah. And I think sometimes they get a bit impatient and a bit sort of, I think I'm not gonna say unrealistic, but a bit impatient and a bit too over ambitious at the start, because they don't understand that, you know, it takes, you know, anyone can get a call up and then just sort of be dropped again. I think it's about being really, really consistent, because there's no use being really good for 6 months, dropping off the game, not giving up all the hard work, and then coming to a new season and find that you're 10 times worse off. At the end of the day, you need to be really, really consistent. At the end of the day, someone who's really consistent is going to be better than someone who spikes and then drops off at the end.
It's important to I always say this, to trust the process.
Trust the process, yeah.
I think obviously it's obviously for the young, and we have many both under 19s, under 17s, all the way through to the younger age groups, to obviously the under 21s as well. There are really, really good young, obviously this is within football, but this applies to all sports, young athletes. And yeah, it's difficult because everyone, you know, you've got a lot of senior players competing at a really good level. So just to get into that squad is really difficult. But sort of we've had already in the squad, there have been so many young players who are already involved. And the good thing is, and that's what sort of I try and always tell the young athletes, that once you get called up, the way sort of, you know, this GIF, like, so I'm going to talk within what I know with football. It's sort of a family environment, and it's sort of once you're called up, you're accepted and you're there. You're not going to be discarded and forgotten about unless you sort of take that decision to do so. So it's important just to work towards that, and some players might have this sort of call up sooner than others, but everyone at their own time, and look, what's meant to be will be, and each one will have their moments. Maybe you as a performer, you might not get called up and you see your team is getting called up, but maybe you get called up further down the line and you're better, you're ready, and that will help you get into the squad. Then you get maybe playing time, whereas maybe you would have gone a bit earlier. That process wouldn't have worked so well. So I think it's important just to trust the process, and once you're in, each player will realize that family environment that we have, that's really, really good, that everyone's there to support each other, you know, which is something really special. They'll just thrive on that, and especially the young athletes with all the top senior players that we have, who sort of just help all the young ones. That's what their ambition should be, and yeah, just patience is key, and just always be there, always knock on the door, always be knocking on the door, and eventually you'll get through, and then you look back and all that hard work, consistency will just help you just drive forward.
That's amazing, bro. I don't know. I hope everyone realizes, but the psychological mindset Jayce is incredible for such a young athlete. In the stage, referring back to when you're injured, because I'm really interested in understanding like sort of your mentality then when you were injured. Was it very difficult to sort of have that sort of clear mind of being like, right, like we're, you know, hard work, or
yeah, don't get me wrong. Now when I've been injured and times, you know, at the end of the day, I'm human, and when I got this injury, it was really, really tough, and sort of I didn't feel that energy of, oh yeah, I'm gonna work hard now, I'm gonna get back. It's something that really, you know, I was really like quite down, and I sort of re-injured myself, and it's sort of something that affected me, and it was just, I didn't want to sort of do anything because it was always in my head, and then it was really, really hard because I had to go to training, and for example, especially in the first initial days, all I had to do is just like stand there and watch all my teammates train, be able to just simply just run, to be able to just do a passing exercise, play small side games, get a good sweat on, like just, it was really, really hard for me to sort of just keep like sort of positive. But, you know, that's when, thankfully, like my parents, my family, just, that's when they came in, and as they always do, and just helped me and sort of made me realize, look, this is another learning curve, and the coaches as well told me. And yeah, it took me time. And look, each player will have to sort of realize that, look, it's okay to take your time just to process everything. And it just made me appreciate everything a lot more. So, you know, bit by bit, I went through all the rehabilitation. Once I started running, I was like, wow, like that's good. Once I started touching the ball, so every moment, every step up for me was something like, wow, like I really appreciate it. And now when I get to training, just being able to be with a team, to compete, to play a small sided game, to just train and finish training, like I appreciate it so much more. So I just look back at this injury, for example, and I sort of I'm thankful that I'm now able to appreciate it a lot more. Just simple as being able to just be there with the team and then just do a jogging warm up, and so that's why there's many difficult moments, and I always say I have sort of, I try and maintain this mindset, and this is the mindset that I have, but it's normal. Like, we're humans, we need to go through things. There are things away from football that are important, family, everything.
The right balance, having the right balance all the time.
Exactly. So don't sort of feel, I think athletes shouldn't feel as if they have to sort of always be, it's okay. Like, I know the motivational videos, they always sort of say, you cannot sort of let this mentality go at any point. And at a very young age, I was like, okay. So I tried to do it, but then there were a lot of like moments where I was like, but how can I maintain it now? Like, you know, you have personal problems. So it's important for you to take the right messages from all those sort of inspirational sort of platforms that we're exposed to, and just adapt it to you and to your personal life. So I think that's massively important as well.
Yeah, everyone's different as well. It's like, so what might work for myself or one of my friends here at uni might be different to what works for Jayce, and what might be different to work for TJ in the national team, or Scott in the national team, or Louis in the national.
Yeah, of course.
The diversity is, in terms of what works for people, is different, because, you know, everyone is a different person, and everyone revolves their game around different people. A lot of people, even if they have a bad game, they might just forget about it and not even analyze it, you know, and then they know what they've done wrong. And I think that being at the level that you are now, playing against the caliber of teams that you have, you know, I think you get to a stage where, or you know, where you're like, right, I know exactly what I've done wrong, you know, no worries, it happens, on to the next one. And I think that will make you a 10 times better player in the long run, you know, because you're able to have that sort of consistent performances, because you know that you know, like you said, you know, it happens, and then it's how you bounce back from it. In terms of the national team, then how how do you change your mindset? I know exactly the answer to this question, but for the viewers watching, obviously I mentioned the caliber of players you've been able to be lucky to play against and worked hard, not luckily, worked hard to play against. You say you don't, obviously you can see in the documentary below, but you don't change your mindset based on who you're playing. You always go and play based, you go and play, regardless of the team. You go and you do your best when you go out on the pitch, whether it's Haaland or someone you're playing in Gibraltar, for example. Did that take a while to adopt when you're in the national team? Because obviously you've gone from playing in Abingdon United, no offense to anyone in Abingdon United, obviously the caliber is still obviously very good, but did it take you a while to adjust to the mindset about bloody, like playing against Romelu Lukaku here? This guy's like, I watched this guy play on TV, like what the hell? And then to go to a stage where you're like, this random striker who's playing for Norway, who was just casually just playing in Borussia Dortmund, whatever. Did it take a while to adopt that mindset?
I've had that question asked quite a few times, and a lot of my friends at university would tell me as well, like, one day you're at university, one day and next day you're competing against Belgium, against Norway, against, all these great teams. And it's just going back to, at first, obviously for me, it was, okay, now I'm going to the national team. I have to sort of mentalize myself. I'm going to come up against big teams. So that at the very start, there was that moment where when I knew the international games were approaching, I was already mentalizing myself. But now I don't switch it off. Like now everything is tailored towards sort of, okay, I'm focusing on the weekly competitive games that I have, for example, in a league season. But I always have that sort of that thought in my mind, okay, there's a possibility I'm going to be competing, obviously if selected, against these top players. So everything I do is tailored towards that. So all the extra gym work, all the nutrition, all the rest, everything, I dedicate my sort of day to day fully. So when it gets to that moment, or when it's approaching to that moment, I don't have to say, now I'm going to start getting ready. I'm ready 24/7 for anything that we may have to sort of come up against. And for me, that's why. So at the time I was in university and I was playing, and I said, okay, maybe we've had a game, and maybe it's been a game where we've been very, very dominant, and we had a lot of the ball, and maybe I finished the game and I felt that I haven't worked. Well, I'll do the extra work. I'll ask my coach, and I would do the extra work on the pitch. I'd do the extra gym work. Because even though my focus was on that game, I know that soon enough, hopefully, if selected, I'm going to come up against someone who's working 100% every day at the highest level. So I need to make sure that I am ready to compete at that level, regardless of who I'm playing or who I'm coming up against. So that's something that I never switch off. Like even silly things and I may sound a bit crazy, but even silly things like sleep, for example, that's massively important. Maybe the game may be weeks away, and I'm already sort of saying, look, I need to, which I always do, but I'm going to make sure that I get the good amount of hours of sleep, so then I can recover well, so then I can train well, and that will help me prepare for the games coming up in 2 months or in a month. So it's something I never switch on. Then that everything I do is tailored towards being at the highest level. That time comes.
It's not silly at all. It's not silly at all, bro, because at the stage where you're at now, where you're playing against these players, and you've deserved and you've earned the right to play against these sort of players, there's a level where you need to get that extra 1%, because at the end of the day, these guys are going to have, obviously through all the work they've done, and they've earned the right to play professional football just as much as you have. They are going to have that extra 1% as well. So I think you need to, that mentality to be able, like, right, I'm going to match these guys, I'm going to do, if I'm going to work, if not the same, even harder than they do, just to make sure that I absolutely come in 110%. So
yeah, I always treat it with humility as well. Like, I don't think these guys are are the highest top players. They have all the facilities. They're training every day. These guys are at levels above, but I sort of do everything within my power to sort of close that gap. And every time I try and close it more and more. And every time I come up against them, I learn many things that I can apply for next time. And that's what I try and do. I know that these players are competing at the highest level week in, week out. So I try and make sure that when the time comes to face them, I know I'm ready and I've put in the work. And I know that I just make sure that he hasn't worked harder than I have, and that's it. So
that's fantastic, bro. That's an amazing mindset to have. And I think it's a very common trend throughout this episode where I've been able to get an insight as to what Jayce has done. But the last few questions, bro, if that's all right. Did you have a role model that you looked up to, or sort of an individual who's sort of shaped the person that you are today? And for example, coming into this new set of fixtures we got in September, has there sort of been that one person who's led you into sort of adopting this mindset, which I've just mentioned?
I wouldn't say at a very young age within football. Within football, I remember I did an interview when I was younger. They asked me who sort of I looked up to and stuff. Firstly, even though sort of my parents and my family members, they've really, this mentality that I've adopted has been a lot to do with how my parents and my grandparents have educated me, in the sense of placing the importance of hard work, of dedication, of making sure that I do my best each day. You know, at a very young age, obviously, I would do a lot of sports, or maybe get to that day where I wouldn't want to go training and stuff. And my parents sort of helped me understand the importance of going, of not missing, of being there, and being a good teammate, being a good leader in the team. And I took a lot from that. So firstly, it's my parents and my family who sort of helped me and continue helping me through that. And then obviously within football, since a very, very young age, someone I've always looked up to, and I still do, within the national team is for Roy Shipolina. He's a legend. I think he's a
legend.
Absolute legend, Roy. He's a great model, as well as Liam, Joseph, Lee, all the other top senior players that we have, which are great sort of role models. You know, I've always looked up to him and looked up to the other players, and I've always tried to be a sponge, and still do, and try and get the best for them. But mainly sort of I'm always striving towards sort of what I aspire to be each day. So I know that I'm never going to be completely everything that I aspire to be, because I know that sort of I'm okay with that. I know that everything that I want to be is, because of how life is, it's impossible to be, and it would be too perfect. But I always strive towards that and try and get as close to it as possible. So I'm always pushing towards my better self, if you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, get 110%.
That's my sort of motivation. Trying to become the better self that I over the years, each year I've been it's become clearer and clearer and clearer of who that person is. So that's what I am working towards each day. And I know that I'm completely aware that I never get to that, but I'm always getting closer and closer and closer and closer. And that's something that I always have. And it's something that I always and every time I add better things, better aspects to help that better self improve, which will help me essentially improve. So it's just something that I always have in my mind, and it's something that may not work for anyone, or maybe anyone that who's watching may think, oh, well, what's my better self, and then strive towards that better self. And it's something that I've always had.
That's good, bro. I think all of those guys, all your family and all the guys in the national team are very proud of where you come, because obviously they should be able to tell sort of how you go about your business, and that's how obviously I think everyone should model themselves around. Obviously, like I said, everyone's different, but there's always that key sort of baseline, which I think everyone should have. Finishing off with this question, because I always like to finish off this question. What advice would you give to someone who wants to be the next Jayce Olivero, whether that be sort of in the national team or in Abingdon United or anywhere? What advice would you give?
Firstly, I'd tell them to not want to be the next Jayce Olivero. I'd tell them to want to be the next best that they are. So I think it's massively important. You know, we have a lot of top role models around, close family, within Gibraltar and outside. And I think it's important for each athlete to sort of be a sponge and just be a learner everywhere you go. Try and take as much as possible. So take the best of each person around you within your environment and adapt it to yourself, but still be you. Don't sort of lose and try and be something else, because at the end of the day, each one of us has something special, and essentially we can sort of become great if, you know, we choose to just take the best things around us. And the massive sort of the thing that's most important to me is just put in the work every day. And it's not just putting in the work when you step on the pitch, it's putting in the work as soon as you wake up. You're already working, you're already training. In terms of which, obviously within your Instagram page you put a lot of advice and you put a lot of emphasis on it, which I completely agree. Your nutrition, your rest, your sleep, your training, your extra gym work, that's all those 1% make a difference. I know I've been, and I still am, a young guy who sort of has a group of friends, and look, my friends have all been involved in sports, but not everyone is going to be dedicated to sports fully. At the end of the day, if you want to really take this seriously and get to the highest level you can, you have to make sacrifices. And I always say you cannot have the best of both worlds.
No.
You at the end of the day, you have to realize, do you want to be able to compete at the highest level, have these sorts of experiences playing against the top players, and competing at the highest level week in, week out? Or do you want to, which there's nothing wrong in, like, being able to maybe just be more relaxed, just compete in your sport, but not sort of push for or strive for greatness. And it's, you know, it's okay whether you take one or not, but make sure that if you take that decision of wanting to compete at the highest level, you're in it 100%. And that's massively important. And make sure always to keep your family members and those, your loved ones, close, because football's a very harsh world, and it's important to have those, it can be family or friends, those close to you, because that will help you on the way. And never sort of doubt yourself. There's been many moments in the past where personally I've doubted myself, and it's important just to know that if you put in the work, you'll always be ready. And that's it. And it's 100% or 150% hard work, dedication and commitment, and it's 24/7, and never switch it off. But always know, like we've mentioned, the hard moments are going to come, but it's not the bad moments, it's the learning moments. So yeah, and just be you.
Ladies and gents, that is, I have no other words to say. Jayce has taken all the words out of my mouth. I've lost my job because of, I just don't know what to say anymore. I don't know what to say anymore. He's taken all the words out of my...
You're really know what you do, mate.
Yeah. No, but honestly, ladies and gents, boys and girls, there's a person to follow after all that advice that he's given. You know, my mind's blown. It's difficult because, like, I've had different people on here so far and different ages, and they've all had fantastic mindsets, but it's very difficult. It's very impressive to see how someone's so switched on and sort of ready for anything. So A massive thank you to Jayce for coming on today. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you very much for having me.
No worries at all. No worries at all. Always welcome. And fingers crossed we'll be seeing Jayce soon, very soon in September, playing for the national team again. And obviously he's going to do well. It's very clear. So thanks very much for coming on, bro. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, and all the best to you and to all the young athletes around there.
No worries. Thanks very much, bro.